Some people, and I mean this with genuine respect, cannot walk past a window at night without looking up. It doesn't matter if they're in the middle of a sentence or halfway through locking the door or running late for something that actually matters. The sky is dark, the stars are out, and suddenly they're gone, neck craned, scanning for constellations they learned the names of years ago and have never forgotten. You've met these people, maybe you are these people. And if you are, you've probably noticed that this isn't really a choice you're making. It's more like a reflex, this pull toward the night sky, and it's worth asking why that is, because it's not actually about astronomy. Not really, not at the core of it. Here's what's happening when you find yourself staring up at a clear night sky longer than anyone around you thinks is reasonable. You're not just looking at stars. You're having a very specific psychological experience that most people either don't notice or actively avoid, and the difference between those two responses tells you something real about how your brain is wired. The night sky does something unusual to human perception. It presents you with scale that your brain cannot fully process, distances it cannot convert into anything meaningful, and a visual field that has no clear boundaries. There's no frame, there's no edge. Just this vast, dark expanse with points of light that may or may not still exist, and your mind, which spends most of its time trying to make the world manageable and predictable, suddenly has nothing to hold on to. For a lot of people, this is uncomfortable. Not in a way they'd articulate, but in a way that makes them glance up, acknowledge it briefly, and then return their attention to something closer, something they can actually do something about. But for some people, this is the feeling they've been looking for all day. That sensation of being small in a way that doesn't feel threatening, of confronting something so enormous that it temporarily short-circuits the part of your brain that's been keeping score, tracking tasks, measuring yourself against impossible standards. The sky doesn't care. It's not asking anything of you. It's just there, and so are you, and for a moment the proportions of your life rearrange themselves. There's a concept in psychology called the overview effect, originally documented in astronauts who saw Earth from space. They reported a cognitive shift, a sudden sense of unity, fragility, and perspective that stayed with them long after they returned. But you don't need to leave the planet to experience a version of this. The night sky offers it for free every clear evening to anyone willing to stop and look up long enough to feel it. What researchers have found is that experiences of awe, the specific emotional state triggered by encountering something vast that challenges your existing mental models, have measurable effects on the brain. They reduce activity in the default mode network, the part of your brain responsible for self-referential thinking, for that constant internal narrative about who you are and what you need to be doing. Awe, even brief awe, quiets that voice. It pulls you out of your own head, not through distraction but through perspective. And people who are drawn to the night sky, who seek it out, who feel something shift when they look up, are often people who need that interruption more than they realize. They're people whose minds run hot, who overthink, who carry a background hum of anxiety or self-criticism that doesn't fully switch off during waking hours. The sky doesn't fix that, but it does something else. It reminds you that you are not the center of the universe, and somehow that's a relief. Think about what you're actually seeing when you look at the night sky. Light that left its source decades, centuries, sometimes millions of years ago. You're looking backward in time at things that are already gone or already changed, and your brain knows this, even if you're not consciously thinking about it. You're perceiving something that is both real and unreachable, present and absent, and that paradox does something to the way you hold your own concerns. The argument you had earlier, the email you didn't send, the decision you've been avoiding, all of it is still there, but it's also suddenly very small, and not in a dismissive way. In a clarifying way. There's also something about the consistency of it. The sky changes, obviously. The moon phases, the planets shift, constellations rotate with the seasons. But the fact of the sky itself, the fact that it's up there doing exactly what it's been doing for longer than human language has existed, that's steady in a way almost nothing else is. And people who are fascinated by it are often people who are looking for that steadiness, even if they don't name it that way. They're looking for something that isn't reactive, that doesn't need them, that won't change based on their performance or their productivity or their ability to keep it all together. The stars don't know you exist, and that is, for some people, the most comforting fact available. But here's where it gets more specific. Not everyone who looks at the night sky is having the same experience, and the particular way you engage with it reveals something about what your brain is seeking. Some people look up and immediately start identifying, naming constellations, tracking planets, pulling out apps that map the sky in real time. This is pattern recognition, the satisfaction of organizing chaos into something knowable. These are often people who find comfort in structure, who like having frameworks, who feel best when they can name what they're looking at and understand how it works. There's nothing wrong with this. It's a completely valid way to interact with the sky, and it speaks to a mind that finds meaning in mastery, in the ability to make sense of complexity. But then there are the people who look up and don't particularly care what they're looking at. They couldn't tell you if that's Venus or a satellite or an airplane at high altitude. They're not trying to identify anything. They're just looking, letting their eyes lose focus, letting their mind go quiet, and what they're after is not knowledge. It's the feeling, the sense of being held by something larger. These are often people who spend most of their time in their heads, people who live in language and analysis, in the constant translation of experience into meaning, and the sky offers them a rare break from that. It's too big to narrate. It doesn't fit into the story they're telling themselves about their life, and that's exactly why it works. And then there are the people, and this is a smaller group but a distinct one, who look at the night sky and feel something closer to longing. Not sadness exactly, but a kind of ache, a pull towards something they can't quite name. They're the ones who stare a little too long, who go quiet in a way that makes other people ask if they're okay, and what they're feeling is often a very old human experience. The sense that we come from something vast and will return to it, that we are temporary and small and also part of something ongoing. This isn't depression. It's not nihilism. It's closer to what philosophers used to call the sublime, that mix of beauty and terror that comes from confronting the limits of your own existence. These people are often deeply reflective, sometimes to their own detriment. They think about mortality more than most. They wonder about meaning in a way that doesn't resolve neatly. The night sky doesn't answer their questions, but it meets them where they are, and that's something. There's also a developmental piece here that doesn't get talked about enough. A lot of people who are fascinated by the night sky as adults had some early experience with it that imprinted. Maybe a parent who pointed out constellations, maybe a camping trip where the lack of light pollution made the Milky Way visible for the first time, maybe just a night when they were young and couldn't sleep and looked out the window and felt something shift. The brain is particularly receptive to awe experiences in childhood. They shape the way we orient toward the world, the things we decide are worth paying attention to. And if you had even one moment as a kid where the sky made you feel something you didn't have words for, that often stays with you, becomes a kind of anchor point you return to without fully realizing why. We live in a world that is increasingly hostile to this kind of attention. Light pollution has made the night sky invisible to a third of humanity. The constant pull of screens means we rarely look up at all. The cultural pressure to be productive, to optimize, to make every moment count, makes standing outside staring at nothing feel like a waste of time. But the people who do it anyway, who still find themselves drawn to the night sky despite all of this, are protecting something important. They're protecting their capacity for wonder, for perspective, for that brief suspension of the self that makes everything else bearable. So if you're someone who can't help but look up, who feels something when the stars come out, who has ever stood outside longer than made sense just to keep watching, this is what that might mean. You have a brain that needs scale. You need to be reminded regularly that you are not the totality of existence, that your problems are real but not ultimate, that there is something ongoing and indifferent and beautiful that will keep going long after you're gone. That's not morbid. It's grounding. It's the thing that lets you go back inside and keep trying. The night sky doesn't solve anything, but it does something better. It reminds you what you're part of, and for some people, that's the only thing that makes the rest of it make sense.